Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi. Great, well hello everyone.
Hello there.
We're joined today by Dave, and obviously me and Scott are here. Just very quickly, if there's anyone here that hasn't seen it before, we do this weekly. We normally talk for about an hour and a half about guitar related things and building related things, and there's a link in the description of this video where you can see the playlist of all the past episodes and get notifications for the ones coming up. And we're part of the Guitar Builders Collective, which also exists as an Instagram account where Corey from Saul Guitars that sort of manages it shares posts by other builders. So if you're following that, you can see lots of great builders who you can go and follow. There's a forum you can join and find out more about the things like the competition we're running, the Yergs Cup, and just get some help, advice and share knowledge, I guess, which is why we started this off, to sort of help share some knowledge, share some ideas, a bit of inspiration. And also, as I was saying to Dave just before we started, if it wasn't for this, I'd just be in my workshop all day, every day, not seeing anyone.
I just got a message from Mark that he didn't get a link. So
okay. If you two don't mind chatting, I'm going to send him a link.
No, oh, jolly good.
So,
well, I'm honoured to be on the show. It's a great honour. I've been watching some of the last few episodes, so it's really interesting to hear proper guitar builders, because I'll come clean. You know me. Guitar building for me is a bodge.
It's funny how many people feel that way about themselves, but the community certainly doesn't look at them that way.
It's amazing. You're on about the community, how it's built up, isn't it? And from those early days, I mean, I remember that first Great Guitar Build-Off competition, and I saw it come up with Ben. I was an avid watcher of Ben, and then I think somebody came along. Was it Ray Baggett? And he said, can we join in? And I thought, I thought long and hard about it, and I thought, I'm going to have a go as well. And I'm so glad I did, because it was an incredible experience.
I've told my side of the story. The first time I saw that video, it was like a month old, and I was like, "No, I already missed it." I had no idea that we were just getting started, and I was like, I was nervous, but I was like, I want to get into this, and it just, luckily it was perfect.
I love your guitar, the cookie guitar, wasn't it?
Yeah,
amazing.
Ice cream sandwich. I swore I would never do that again, just because rounding the holes off, all those holes, oh my God, that was nightmarish. But there were a couple little things about that guitar that I didn't like, just enough that I really wish I had done them different. And someday I may make another one.
Right.
I've had a lot of pride and happiness in knowing that I have the one and only ice cream guitar in the world. I had the idea for a long time, and I once in a while I would Google ice cream sandwich guitar, and there was nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. And I kept thinking, I can still be the first one ever.
I think you got it.
An ice cream sandwich manufacturer, and
right.
So I've got to ask Scott, have you still got the guitar?
I do. I don't know that I would ever let go of that one. I mean, somebody messaged me right now and said 10 grand, yours, sold, but that's not happening. I'm sitting there thinking, it's the only one in the world. I'm keeping that forever.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, watching you on that one was a real eye-opener for me on the way that you produced your necks. Because it was nothing, it was completely foreign to the way that I'd always done them. So it was fascinating to watch that.
At that time, I still had only ever done neck through. I was actually afraid of trying to do a neck pocket, so I hadn't done just a neck. They were all neck throughs up until that point.
Yeah, but it's the way you cut the wood and then you cut the profile of the neck out. I'd always, being cheap, to be perfectly honest with you, made the neck and then stuck a headstock on the top, and never ever thought of actually chopping the whole lot out of the block. So that was an eye opener. But no, it's really clever, really clever. Hello there.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
I must apologise for not sending the link through. I was saying to Dave, I hadn't even contacted him just to double check today. Oh, I'm not quite with it at the moment.
It's all good. Thank you so much for having me back. Thanks.
Oh no, welcome. Great. Dave was just talking about the first great guitar build off and how he got involved, and seeing Scott's ice cream sandwich guitar.
Yes, that was quite amazing.
It was.
There were a lot of weird problems in there that I had never run across. But I was thinking about past stuff with a lot of your videos, and one of the things I've always enjoyed about watching your stuff is you're not doing the standard things that everybody else is, so you've always got unique problems to overcome, and it's entertaining to watch that happen.
It's not by design. No, I mean, my approach to guitar building, first of all, I mean, I'm building it basically for fun. So the build process is the fun part.
Exactly.
And, I know I sort of tend to shy away from good advice when it comes to guitar building. So I've had some pretty dodgy areas to cover. But it is part of the fun. And I mean, I've got to blame Ben, actually, at Crimson Guitars for a lot of this, because a lot of his guitar builds that I watched sort of before I got involved was, he'd get certain point in the build and then he'd say, well, I could do it this way, the standard way, or actually I could do it a different way, and I'm going to have a go at the different way. And it's usually more complicated, I know he's into watchmakers and all that sort of thing, and he'll do something really off the wall. And so I get to a point in the guitar build and I think, do you know what, I could do it the normal way, but why don't I do something different? On the recent guitars where I've made the bridges, I could go out and buy a bridge and it'd be much better than the ones I make, to be honest with you. But it's just that challenge of let's have a go.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that you run into that you didn't have a whole lot of choice, though. I mean, the Yerkes Cup and GGBO last year, the way the neck went on is just it's just not a standard problem to deal with. You've had to come up with some fairly ingenious ways to make all that happen. Those are the things that are interesting to watch. Watching somebody cut their 47th neck pocket is, we all do this. We all know so watching new problems, unique things, that really is entertaining.
David, was that great guitar build off your first ever guitar build?
No. My first guitar build was in 2005. Right. That's when I started building them. So I built quite a few guitars up to that point. My thing, what I got onto was a travel guitar, and actually built a travel guitar for that first guitar build off, because I joined a guitar club where we met every week and played guitar. And one of the guys there went off to Australia for a little while, and he took a travel guitar. And I thought, that'd be a really good idea, because we were going to Thailand in a few months' time. So I thought, well, why not build a travel guitar? So came up with a really simple design and put it together. And took it apart, took it to Thailand, played it. It worked a treat. It needed an amplifier in order to go into the iPad. So I built a little separate little box and plugged that in and did that. So I thought, okay, this is really good. And I thought perhaps there's a market for this. So when I came back, I tried building, I think I built about 6 in all, sort of prototypes. And eventually got one, I think on the 3rd attempt, with the amplifier built into the body of the travel guitar. So you've got a piezo pickup under the bridge, then you've got a humbucker by the bridge, and then you've got a single coil by the neck. So I was trying to give a whole range of sort of tones so that I could go, away on holiday and plug it into one of the, doors on the iPad and record music and stuff like that. But of course, the thing is, you can go into a shop and buy a travel guitar for about 350 quid with no bother. I don't know what it is in dollars, but probably about the same. And so it's not really it's never going to be a money maker. But they are great guitars. I mean, I do enjoy making those because they're small, they're easy to do.
I've always said, why would you go buy a guitar for $300 when you can build your own for, $6?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, my approach to this is, it's been to anything really. If I can't afford something, I'll have a go at making it. So the first guitar was the fact that I'd love the Les Paul shape, and at the time couldn't really afford a Les Paul, so let's have a go at making one. And I bought a book and just followed it step by step really.
I've come to notice through life that a lot of the things that I do are based on do-it-yourself kind of attitude. I mean, it's why I got into software, and a lot of things have tended to evolve out of that mentality for some reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, I worked in software for a lot of my life, and I agree with you. And especially the fact is that if you're not very good at something, and maths wasn't one of my strong points, if a computer can do it for you, then best to learn how to get the computer to do it for you. And certainly electronics and all that sort of stuff. I mean, right in the early days, just after I got married, I got a guitar, but I didn't have any pedals. So there was all these electronic magazines come out, build your own phaser pedal and all this sort of stuff. So I got all the bits, got all the, the circuit boards and stuff. Ended up with this big box with all these effects in, which actually sounded like rubbish, to be perfectly honest with you. But at the time, it was good, and I was pleased as punch, I'm
sure it was fun. Well, I've talked about this before, that I've seeing people that you can actually, breadboard and stuff and produce your own effects sounds like the coolest thing ever. I just, and I feel like if I did it, it probably would be trash. It would be fun. It's just, I don't have the expertise to actually do any of that, and I haven't had the time to.
That's where you're wrong, you see. That's where you're wrong. I think everybody's got the expertise. It's just a question of having a go. You mentioned breadboarding and stuff. I mean, the amp for the travel guitar was I found a link on the internet. A chap called Donald Tillman, who designed a FET amplifier, which he reckoned sort of was similar to a Fender amp pre-stage. Yeah. It's a really simple amplifier. So I said about, I mean, I don't really know much about all the mechanics of the electronics, if you know what I mean, but I said about with a breadboard, putting these things together until I got a combination that sort of worked. And then I went ahead with that. And in touch wood, it seemed to have worked. Fortunately, one of the guys that watched me is an electronics expert, and he suggested some amendments which I'm building in. But you can get something going. Give it a go.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because I mean, like guitar building and everything else, you take that first step. You get in and
do it. I mean, these days when I build guitars, it's really, I just build guitars for myself. So I'm not trying to build them to sell or anything like that. And it's one of these things that laugh at your own jokes. I actually play my own guitars, and I get real pleasure from that, because I'm thinking, I've got a guitar here. You mentioned your ice cream guitar is unique. Every guitar we build ourselves is unique, isn't it? There isn't another one of those in the world, as it were. And there's something about that. There's a magic about that, I think. Yeah.
Well, I've said a million times, every time I finished one, I stare in amazement that I did that. I mean, to this day still. And to sit and play it is kind of reliving that. Yeah.
Mark, what's your thing? You make guitars?
I do. I make guitars every once in a while. I can finish about 3 a year, maybe, if I'm lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know you've been into electronics as well. I know you've built amplifiers, tube amps and stuff like that.
I have built tube amps. I have repaired vintage tube amps. I've built pedals. I've kind of done it a whole thing, but I tend to stay away from it just simply because I think a lot of people aren't interested in it, to be honest. Right. Yeah. Watching someone breadboard or watching someone solder circuitry is just not interesting visually, I suppose. But yeah, I dabble in pretty much everything.
There's a lady on YouTube, and I can't think of her name now, who repairs old vintage amps, and it's absolutely fascinating watching her. The way she goes in and what I find interesting is how she sorts out the problems with them. It's got a real buzz in it, and she'll say, "Oh, well, that's probably the resistor or something like that."
It's basic troubleshooting. I mean, getting back to software, it's just a basic set of troubleshooting steps. You first thing, it's not that. It's the second thing. You try the third thing, and you're going to find the issue pretty quickly.
It's clever stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'll watch her all day long, but I don't think anybody wants to watch me repair it too now.
No,
you never know.
I was watching you with your fret leveling video, and I you inspired me to do the last video that I put out. You were saying, do you need to level frets? I think, or you don't level frets, and I think you were using stainless steel frets. Which I would never go near. I'll be perfectly honest with you, because they look too hard in the too difficult box. But you make me think. Actually, it's one of those things when we're building guitars. Leveling the frets is built into the process, isn't it? It's just it. You just do it. You don't. That's it. And I just thought, well, actually, do you really need to? Because I mean, the problem I find is that I mark them all up and I start rubbing the leveling beam over it, and I end up taking loads more off some of them than I need to, and then you've got to reshape them and try and get them back to how they looked in the first place. So I thought, okay, let's see. So that's why the last video I just strung up the bass I'm making with the frets that I just put in. I hadn't even done the ends, and it was quite interesting that I think there was just one fret that I needed to fiddle with, and then the rest of it's okay, to be honest with you. But
that's exactly what you were saying last week, Mark, about trying to get rid of some of those stages that are ingrained.
I don't have an answer for frets yet. I tried to address it, right? I tried to address the idea that it's a backwards process for us to put down perfectly brand new frets and then scrape the hell out of them, right? And then have to reshape them. That process, if you think about it, it's a very caveman type process. There has to be a more elegant, refined way. I don't know what that way is.
No.
Right? But there has to be. And Ken Parker has a series. He's doing a series on his neck journey, and he touches on that just a little bit with the Parker Fly, where he had basically designed his neck, his fretboard, to be so level that once they glued the frets in, there was really no need for fret leveling. So the Parker Fly Deluxes did not need leveling. So I think there is definitely a way to do it. I just haven't figured it out, and I don't know if anyone else really has.
No.
I've seen Ty from Shop the Fox. He rounds the end of his frets off using a little kind of Dremel tool that he's changed a bit. So he's put the fret in, it grinds it, gives it perfect shape.
Yep.
And I always thought, why are you doing that if you're then going to level it? But I've seen him in a number of times in his videos, and people comment, why aren't you leveling your frets? And he basically says, if your fretboard's right and your frets are all new and you're just putting them in, why would they not be he said occasionally you have to level the odd one or two, exactly like you said, Dave. And that's made me realise, along with what you're saying, Mark, in your video, it is ingrained that we do this. This is the next step, and it is a bit of a pointless step.
Yeah, there's debate both ends. Like, there's this idea of having the frets being completely like coplanar, right? That first fret and that 22nd fret, they need to be on the same plane. And it's really hard to get that without a level, a complete level. But if you can make your board perfectly flat, your neck, and you can make your fretboard perfectly flat, and you place those frets on, and the frets have to have basically a tolerance where they're all basically the same height, right? And so no fret manufacturer publishes their tolerances except for one. Only one manufacturer publishes their tolerances for their frets. And it's like plus or minus whatever, but it's Jescar. Jescar publishes those data sheet, right? Yeah. And so you want to get a fret manufacturer that actually publishes that, you know the tolerances, so you know you're only going to be off by point whatever. You lay those frets down and they should technically be level, right? It's all about the discrepancies in the height and the leveling of basically from the bottom, the neck, the fretboard, and the frets themselves.
Yeah.
I've had a few builds that you go to level and it takes very little work at all. And you probably didn't need to level to begin with. And I've had some that I absolutely had to level. And through the process of multiple builds, I started to piece together some things that made my fretboard not perfect, or the whole aggregate not perfect. But speaking about caveman stuff, I'm still using a hammer, and that definitely contributes to variations from fret to fret. There's so many variables, and beginners watch somebody do this and they realize, okay, get your stuff flat, put your frets in. But there's so many variables that go into the flatness of the neck and staying with the radius and how the frets actually go in, and there's so much to it. So mine has been hit or miss. There have been some builds that really probably didn't need leveling, and quite a few that really did. But like I said, when you're using a hammer, it's maybe unavoidable.
Yeah, and I guess with everything, it's experience and how good you get at it. Ray's just said, isn't it about leveling should be fine adjustments? And I know definitely when I started off, it wasn't fine adjustments. It was pure aggression. And that's why
I started off. Sorry, after.
I would say that's why I like watching other people doing their frets, because it made me realise quite early on that the first few I did, I don't have to be as. Some people just seem to lightly glide over their frets when they're doing it, whereas I was like both hands like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I used an oil stone to start off with, and that just took loads off. But no, I mean, I found that with this bass guitar, but I was stringing it all up, and then just actually playing it and seeing where the buzzes were. It was quite a help, because I mean, fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's how it plays, isn't it? That's the thing, it's the action that you like, and how the guitar plays. That's the important thing.
I guess when you think about it, leveling is just avoiding figuring out the actual problem. It's just
right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of is the simple approach to just kill everything.
No, it's interesting. No, I did after the video that you made, I think a while back. I watched that. You were talking about the Plex machine, and so I did watch that, and I thought, well, that's really clever, but I don't know. It just seemed a bit too much overkill in a way. I mean, I can see if you're doing mass production and stuff like that, that sort of machine would do the job. But I don't know. I just felt like, well, the most important thing is, does it play well? That's the important thing, Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, these videos are incredible because you learn such a lot from them, don't you? What people are doing.
Speaking of which, people have said in the chat they're here to find out more about things like your jigs. You're well known for your jigs in the community.
I did see you the other day talking about my jigs. Look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I started building the guitars, the last thing I wanted to do was get diverted away from building the guitar. I mean, the first few guitars I made the Les Paul sort of copy thing, and then a couple of bass guitars, and I just dived straight in and did it. And I suppose it's more recently that I've sort of realized that actually, if you've got a couple of jigs and tools, it really does help the process. You know, and so I've got to the state now there where I actually quite enjoy making the jigs because it's part of the process of building the guitar, and I'm in no rush to finish the guitar because I've got a few to play, so it's not a rush, and I'm not building it for anybody else. So the jig is sort of it's a bit of a challenge. Usually you've got to think, well, okay, this is the problem. What can I do to get around that problem? My fretboard leveling rocker, I don't know if you know that one. It was a piece of wood with 3 bolts in it that I just used to check whether the fretboard has bowed after I put the frets in, which gets round not avoiding a slotted ruler. I thought, well, you know, that was a problem. I thought, well, I'm not gonna fork out for a slotted ruler because I'll need to buy one for each scale size that I work on, and I like building basses and I like building electric guitars. So I thought, what can I do to give me the same sort of effect? All I need to know is, what is that neck level now, or has it changed? And so this piece of wood, which is about, I don't know, just over a foot long, with 3 bolts in it, that acts like a rocker. You know, you can set it up on a level, on a straight edge, and then plonk it on the guitar, and you know if it's rocking, there's a problem. You know if there's a dip in the middle, there's a problem, and you can sort it out. So that's my sort of view on jigs. But you've got to get a mindset to say that's, you know, it's part of the process, and you enjoy doing it, because I can understand it can be a bit of a chore.
No, I've always appreciated that too, because I like kit. It's just part of that is cool to me too. So to produce something that is helpful, but genuinely helpful, and you know, those can kind of be some of the things I'm proud of, as you know, as well. So I kind of share the same mindset.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, do you have jigs? I mean,
yeah, I've spent recently too much time building jigs, partly to avoid doing the work, I think, because as I was saying to you off camera, I was doing a lot of repair work last year and I wasn't really enjoying it. So every new piece of repair work, I thought, well, I could do it like this, or I could make a jig, so if the same thing comes in again, I can do it much quicker. So then I spent as much time making the jig as I did for the repair. But most of those jigs are basically, I've watched videos of people doing things. I thought, oh, that's clever, and I've copied theirs. So, for example, there's Bo Hanneman. I forgot. Bo Hanneman, I think his name is. I follow him on Instagram. He does lots of repair work, and he was doing a repair of a Les Paul headstock, and I was really impressed with how his jig worked to basically make the whole process so smooth. So I just spent, I think, a week building a jig, and it's a beautiful little thing I've built. But now I don't think I ever want to repair a Les Paul headstock again. So I'm keeping the jig, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, we talked some about this in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, and you know, Mark's perspective is totally different. You know, avoid the things that take you away from guitar building, but I get caught up in that crap is just extra coolness. You know, you got this thing in the shop, and I don't know. It's fun to me that I know this thing I built will help me do this part of the process, and it's fun to show off on video.
Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of the jigs have come down from a practical problem. I mean, holding the guitar down, holding it steady on the bench to do work on it, whether it's planing or whatever. that guitar body. So the sort of fixture I made there to clamp that down. I use it all the time. I use it for then joining two pieces. If I'm doing a top, making a book match top, I use it to do that. It's one of those things where you think, oh, hang on, I've got that. Can I adapt it slightly and it'll do something else? I mean, like you, Daniel, I mean, most of the jigs I've got I've copied from somebody else. Whether it's copying Ben Crow's hammer, or it is, or there's a sort of a neck jig which is brilliant.
I saw that video the other day.
A neck buck, it's a fantastic. The original one the guy made is really awesome, and it holds the neck really tight, and you can do all the shaping on the back. You can get your rasp on it and shape the back of the neck really easily with it. Just makes life so much easier. I never spend an awful lot of time worrying about how the jig looks, though. If it's made of scraps, it's made of scraps. If it does the job, that's it. I'm not building a jig to go on show. I'm building a guitar. But
most of my workshop's made of scraps. I made a thing. So for raising the fretboard, I made a little jig like lots of people have got. It's just a thing on wheels, and your handheld palm router goes on the top, and it goes like this over it. And to help it go backwards and forwards smoothly, I'd just taken down some sliding doors, so I used these sliding door rails on it. And I think basically what I'm doing is just every time something appears that could be thrown in the bin, I'm thinking, how can I not throw that in the bin? Because I probably wouldn't have needed something to slide it backwards and forwards. But I had these sliding door rails, and I thought, I don't want to just throw them away.
Absolutely, I agree.
I absolutely 100% have to stop doing that and just get on with guitars.
So Mark, you're not into jigs then?
I have a different perspective, I suppose, just because of the way I work. So I'm lucky I have a CNC machine, and I understand that I'm lucky, and that has pretty much replaced a lot of my tools. So for example, I'll just give you a quick example. I have a jointer, right, that I never use because I'm now jointing on the CNC. And Daniel, repairing headstocks, I just do that on the CNC now. So I can build my splints and the splint slots on the CNC. And so that really does replace a lot of the jig stuff. And again, just pure lucky.
Well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Back in the day, I mean, I think I built a jig or two. In fact, I did a little bit of repair work recently. I don't know if it's a jig or not, but there was a hole in an acoustic. I need to put like a panel in the sound hole to get it glued in from the inside. So I built this little tool, Stumax sells it, but it's an L bracket, and it's got a guitar tuner in there. And you put a string on there, and you're able to turn the tuner, and it pulls the piece of wood in nice and tight. I built two of those. Again, ugly, really, really ugly to look at, but they worked. And I don't know if that's a tool or a jig, but I did do that recently.
Doesn't matter, as long as it does the job. That's
right.
So a lot of your jigs are now files.
Exactly. That's right. Same thing. I mean, that's a good point, Scott, because like even when I'm designing in CAD, when you think about, let's say you're doing like an all-access scoop or a carve, like traditionally you'd use a rasp or you'd use a set of tools. I build a custom tool in CAD. So I'll build a curved plane, and that's a tool, and I can put it on that 3D stock, and then it would remove everything. It basically cuts the stock. So I'm building tools, I guess, in CAD to do carves and cutouts and stuff. That's the way I work, at least.
My OCD would enjoy having that collection of files that I can pull down and use just as much as having this thing on the shelf.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with my brain where I love collecting. I'm a pack rat. Talking about scraps, everything I ever did, if it's big enough to glue to something, it's still in the shop somewhere. One of the reasons it's filthy and a huge mess. But this could be useful someday, so I've still got it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, when I was doing the bass guitar, I wanted to use some what was it now? Olive. yeah, an olive top, because I just like the grain in it. So I had a piece left over, so I made the top of that. But when it came to doing the headstock, I just didn't have enough. All I had was offcuts. So I thought, okay, well, let's just join a load of offcuts together, put a bit of veneer between them, and then, you know, it did the job. So I agree. Keep it all.
More than once, I've had designs that come out of the fact that I want to use this, but I don't have enough of it, you know. I did one, it's quite some time ago, that I called it Scraptastic, and it wound up looking like a Knights Templar or Umbrella Corp or something, because all these pieces of the Purple Heart and Bird's Eye Maple, and it's gorgeous. Yeah. Really wish I had a way to use more scraps, because I've got so many scraps that are small, and there's not much in guitar building I could really use these for. But you know, it's all exotic, awesome wood. I've thought about advertising, you know, the knife builders and have them just come rummage through my junk and you know, give me $20 for a box of, you know, scales. At least, you know, put those to use somewhere and give me a little bit of money back, maybe. But
yeah, well, good idea. Building knives is quite a big business these days, I think.
Knives and pens. It's really
yeah, and pens. Well, I think there are a lot of people that do want to, you know, do something in the shop and be productive, and and maybe those are just, you know, easy gateways for a lot of people. But because it seems to be pretty popular, both of those.
So you mentioned radiusing fretboards. It's always a thing with me. I tend to, I have this sanding block, which is again another jig tool, whatever you like to call it. But it's always, I'm never quite sure. I've tried planing, I've tried, you know, sanding them down. What's your preferred methods of doing this?
Oh, I hate sanding. That's why I don't mind sanding when it's light sanding, but when you're radiusing, it feels like too much sanding to me. So I use the radiusing jig to get the rough shape, like it's almost perfect, and then I go over with the light sand to get it really smooth.
Right. So do you get tear out using the router? I mean, I'm slightly frightened of routers.
Well, I guess as well with routers, it's just a matter of any tool getting used to how to use it. I remember when I first made a guitar and I was routing out the pickup cavities, the amount of smoke in my workshop, because I had just gone straight in really deep and was trying to get around it all. But yeah, if you've got a good router bit, it helps. I've also got a much better router, which surprisingly is so much better. I thought it's just a machine that spins something, but it tactically, like the tactile feel of it is different as well, but it doesn't vibrate as much, so it doesn't wobble. You know, it's going to be absolutely perfect, and I can also adjust the increments much easier, so I can just do a slow pass and slowly go down and down. And yeah, I don't really get the tear out now, but then I guess it's a matter of the tool and the experience.
For me, it depends. But on some projects, the jig that I have that will route a radius, I can't do it if the fretboard is already on the neck. It's just made for mounting a 1/4-inch fretboard on it. So I don't use it all that often. I worried about tear out when I first started using it, but I've never had an issue with it. But talking about router quality, the palm router I had for the longest time, I just loved this thing and it was perfect. And then it kind of died on me. And I went and I bought an exact copy, the same stupid thing, and it doesn't, the casing on it, it's just somehow less perfect, and it can try to slide a little bit. So I have to grip it like crazy, and for that reason, I'd be terrified to try to use it, you know, to route a radius, because if it slips any, I mean, fretboard's ruined.
Yeah,
I've seen some CNC machines that seem to take palm routers, so you can literally take your like DeWalt hand palm router and put it in. is that me misunderstanding what I'm looking at?
I have a DeWalt. I mean, it's the standard off the shelf DeWalt DW, whatever. And what's interesting is I have to buy the precision collets, right? And I'm buying precision end mills. These are end mills that are like, again, they're designed and to really high tolerances. So it's a handheld normal DeWalt, and I've had it for years. Same one for years. Like I haven't replaced it. And my CNC is old. It's like a grandfather at this point. But yeah, I do all my radiusing on the CNC, and it's very slow. So you guys can probably radius a fretboard very quickly, but I let the CNC take its time. And I'm using a round end mill, right? Okay. I'm going 0.3 millimeters at a time, right? Because the less distance you have, the less cusps you make, which means the less sanding down the road. I still have to sand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I let the machine do it.
Right. And I mean, does that cope with compound radiuses as well?
Yes. I only make compound radiuses. It copes with it just fine. I still have to sand. I have to be very careful when I'm sanding a compound radius because you could easily just mess up that compound radius with your sanding block.
Yeah. No.
In the chat saying he uses a plane all the time. And actually, I saw Chris from King Bespoke Creations ages ago had a video showing you how to radius with a plane and comparing that process to the process he used previously, which I think was all sanding. And I mean, it looked as simple and as quick, and he thought it was better. I think he thought it was better anyway.
I would try that at gunpoint. One of my favorite builds to watch from very early on was Ben's 24-hour build that wound up being 25. I remember him, whipping out the planes. Like, yeah, you just plane this radius in, blah blah blah, and I'm like, bullshit. Hell, I would absolutely destroy it.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The last couple of guitars, I have used the plane really lightly, but I mean, it has chipped out. I've got little flecks on it, so
there's that.
I think so.
But just using the plane to try to put a radius in, I would destroy it. I know. No way in hell I would try it.
No.
This is a good point that Mick's put up about he'd be scared of chipping out the fret slots with a plane. Do you fret yours after you've radiused or before? Cut the slots?
Me, I cut the slots before, and I sharpen the blade as sharp as I can get it, and take off the smallest amount. And I mean, I'm only using it a bit like you are with your router, just to get a rough shape, and the rest of it's done with the sanding block. But yeah, I'm not sure it's a good idea. I'll be honest with you. I also tend to push the plane at an angle as well, because I find that helps. You've got if you're cutting at an angle, it's slightly better. But yeah, it's always a challenge, that one.
I haven't made a neck for a while, and I can't remember. But the last one I made, I'm pretty certain I cut the slots after I'd radiused it, because I made a jig, so I don't need to mark the fretboard because the jig's got the marks on it, so the neck moves and it moves at the right increments.
Yes,
and I just found it much easier to cut to the right depth straight away when it's radius, as opposed to cutting it and then going back over once it's radius to check everything was right.
I mean, that's always a problem, isn't it? That you radius it and then you realise you've not gone deep enough with the fret slot. Then you've got to try and I mean, if you put binding on it, because I tend to put the binding on and then do all the radiusing after that. So then it's even more of a problem then to cut them out. But yeah,
and that can add a couple little issues that make it not make the fret install not
absolutely
perfect, where it doesn't need leveling. Something I've run into the one I'm dealing with right now. The fretboard is the prettiest piece of wood I've ever seen in my life, and it has been the biggest pain in the ass. And for whatever reason, I don't know, the stainless steel frets that I wound up having to deal with on this damn thing. It's a whole nother problem. The tangs may have been a little bigger or something, but I've had a hell of a time getting them to actually seat correctly. And this one is definitely going to need a lot of leveling
Leveling. So what do you guys all use stainless steel?
God, no. No, the guy that this is for specifically asked for it, and I tried like hell to talk him out of it. It's just, I think this is one of those situations where I heard about this, so I gotta have it. You know, I want a 7-string with stainless steel frets, and you know, it can launch satellites. And I'm like, God, no, why?
Speaking of that guitar that I've been working on, I've found out today for almost exactly a year that my client kept wanting more and more electronics and stuff put in it. The courier's picking it up tomorrow, so I feel that the freedom I'm feeling at the moment of being able to build is partly because that's gone, because it's always in the back of my mind now. Sorry, just very quickly, have any of you heard of Austin Shaner?
Yeah.
So, Mark, do you know about this parametric fretboard that Bart's mentioned here?
Austin Shaner is the real deal when it comes to designing guitars in CAD. He probably has a background in probably designing rockets or something. The guy's really smart. And the idea of the parametric fretboard is something that he released for free, which is basically just a fretboard that's completely constrained in the sketches, so that you can type in your values and it modifies a 3D model for you. So if you wanted to have like a multi-scale, or if you wanted to have a specific scale length, or if you wanted to be specific dimensions at the nut and at the 12th fret, you just basically type those things in and it basically builds it for you. Now, all it's doing is giving you a 3D model of the fretboard. I mean, you still have to machine it and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty good. It breaks sometimes when you push it too hard. So for example, some crazy things that I might want to do, or someone, like let's say they wanted to have like an 8-string multi-scale, you could potentially break the sketches and all the constraints. But if you push it lightly in either direction, you can kind of get what you need.
Right.
I've not come across him before. I'm just subscribed. So is he got a channel that's mainly about CAD and guitar focused, or just general?
It's guitar. I want to say it's like 99% guitar focused. But he also has a fully parametric guitar as well that he released for free. So he does it for the community, and he's got a huge following of other kind of like-minded designers, and they have a huge Discord. And I can't say enough nice things. I've actually been in their Discord, and I actually presented a few problems that I was having, and everybody was really helpful. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you're into design and into CAD, this is a good place to start. Although I think for many of us, we build one-off customs that are kind of a little bit outside the box. I believe these are a little bit more in the box, like traditional multi-scale, fretboards, for example, or guitars. You can't really do crazy things with those parametric guitars and fretboards.
Right, looks interesting. So is Fusion 360 the go-to sort of CAD?
It's the go-to CAD because it's free,
right?
In the sense that if you are a startup, you can get it for I think free for a year, and then you have to pay the subscription.
Right. It's all Autodesk. So,
what was that, Scott?
But it's also Autodesk.
Yeah, it's Autodesk. So yeah, they clearly have their higher tier pieces of software, and this one is, I guess, more marketed towards, I don't know, people like us.
Yeah, and it seems like I don't know of any other product. It seems like they've kind of been the go-to for the longest time, and I'm guessing what you learn with like Fusion 360 would translate into AutoCAD and some of the bigger name tools.
I hope so, because the idea of CAD itself is based on sketches. So you wouldn't necessarily hop into a normal 3D modeling application and work that way. CAD is specific, and you're working in sketches. I've been using Blender too, which is an open source 3D software for creating crazy stuff, which you can't do in CAD. Because I want to start using displacement maps, and I want to start doing just nutty things that you can't do in CAD. So I think a combination of tools will get you really something unique, right? You gotta cross-pollinate, right?
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm still using SketchUp free. It's an old version, but I mean it does the job. But yeah, it's the thing about it is though it's not really designed for producing the drawings. Where you want the different views. It does work. It does the job.
Just while everyone's here talking about this, let you know that next week we've got Dan on, who was meant to come on, or Daniel was meant to come on a few weeks ago but wasn't well, and he uses CAD and CNC for his work, and I think he uses it for his work, but uses it for his guitar designs as well. But most of what he seems to do is use it to do the basic work, and then he finishes everything by hand. So he's still got a lot of that hand building process, but like the initial cuts that we might do on a bandsaw and then use a template with a router is done on the CAD. And it reminded me what you were just saying about it being based for sketches. It reminded me when we had Jack on last year talking about CNC, he was saying that if you wanted to start something, never done it before, you want to start something off, you could just have a 2D drawing and then convert that into a file for your CAD that will literally cut out that 2D shape for you. And then you do the hand finishing to shape it. It just sounds like there's so many ways into using CNCs and CAD that are quite simple, and then there's so much space to get really complicated out there that it's this whole new world for me anyway. But it's a world of possibilities that sound really great. So it's really interesting, Mark, in your videos when you do all of that. Sort of, for me anyway, next level stuff that I haven't seen other people do. So I'm intrigued by this Austin guy.
Oh yeah, he's a real deal.
Yeah, I really want to move into that.
I was going to ask you about that because I look at the CNCs, and to me, because it's the building that I'm interested in, and I'm not trying to build to sell, and I can appreciate that if you're building commissions and stuff like that, then the CNC really does help you do that, but it seems to take some of the fun away for me. Take a lot of the problems away perhaps, but
well, I'm kind of with you, because for me the build has always been about the build itself. When it comes to selling, if this one could finance the next one just to keep me in a project, then I'd be cool. But there are a number of problems that I think it would be fun to avoid. Cutting fret slots, it'd be great to have CNC do that for me. It'd be a whole lot more precise, but I think if that was an option, there would be, it would just open the door to a lot of possibilities of weird things that, your brain would start seeing, some things that never occurred to you before, and there could be some fun designs. And watching Mark's GGBO last year, it was kind of amazing to watch the body shape, take shape on the CNC, and my brain just thought, okay, there's all kinds of 3D designs that you could put into this that would be really interesting for a guitar that you could do with hand tools and things, but it would be kind of harder, and it just looked so clean and awesome. I feel like if I had that as an option, there would be, new ideas that came to mind. So I'm with you, but at the same time, I think it would just open the door to a lot of possibilities, and there's plenty of handwork to still do.
Yes, yeah. I mean, why did you get a CNC, Mark? What was it that sort of persuaded you to go down that route?
Again, I was like day one, I knew I wanted a CNC because of really the things I wanted to build in my head. I knew could not be done with hand tools.
Right.
It could only be done on a CNC. So that's why I wanted to jump into it. But I think Scott touched on it too. There's a precision to it. When I started making guitars and I was building them by hand, there was a lot of human error. And I thought, how do I eliminate the human error, which is, me, the dummy? How do I get rid of that? And then you get rid of that with machines. And so even when I remember the day I was like, using a router table to do the body shape, and the button just flies out of my hands. It just goes across the room. And how do I eliminate that human error, right? Those type of things. How do I eliminate chip out human error, right? And the way you do that is with basically a CNC machine.
Yeah.
But then I'm at the point now where it's like, I want to do things that humans can't do. So just a quick example, if you think about like the texture of like a seashell, like how could you do that with hand tools? I mean, maybe you could, but you could do that with a CNC. You could do all sorts of like texture and engraving that are organic and natural. A human being would take them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to do. So that's where I want to go now. Next, I want to go to the places that humans can't go.
So it's really releasing creativity. That's the nub of it, isn't it? You're freeing yourself up. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I started off as an industrial photographer a long while ago, and a lot of I used to photograph a load and load of CNC machines. So it was rather funny when people started talking about CNC machines. I'm picturing these things that are on car production lines. Massive great things, but no, I know they've come on a bit since then.
Yeah, I remember when I was at university, I studied art. One of my tutors that I worked for a bit, he was an artist that made sculptures, and he'd been commissioned by a Formula One company to make sculptures using their rapid prototyping machines, which were basically 3D printing. It cost a fortune at the time, and so he made these interesting sculptures, but now they'd be far less interesting because you can just see it's done on a 3D printer, and despite the fact they were really big, but it's done on a 3D printer, which is just a commonplace thing. And at the time, it was such a unique material, and you just look at it and you'd be, wow, and it's made with a machine. And now, you can probably make them with a machine you can buy for a couple £100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I just want to share something with you. A bit on, I'm going to get my old job hat on here. I used to do a lot of work in arts, and some of what I did was lecturing and things. But I wondered if you're aware of an artist called Bridget Riley. So Bridget Riley makes these sort of images which are almost like magic eye or camera tricks. At the time, it was pop art.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stories about her. But when she first started making her work and first exhibited in New York, within a couple of days of her exhibition opening, a lot of the shops around the gallery were selling clothes with similar patterns on, very inspired by it. And now it just seems like an everyday kind of, we get wrapping paper like this and things like that. But one of the things she was rebelling against when she started making these was mass-produced things that were produced in a factory, or things that were printed en masse. So all of her work is hand-painted, but it looks like it's been produced by a machine or by some sort of tool, something that's got a lot more control than a human hand might have, if that makes sense. Amazing. So what I'm trying to get back to, which is what I was doing early on with some of my guitars, is when I was painting them, I was hand painting them and trying to have a very obvious mark of an artist on it, so you could see it been produced by someone, because I thought that would make it different to a factory produced thing, and the finishes would feel different in that way. And I remember getting a review in a guitar magazine of one of the guitars I'd made, where they basically said it didn't look very good because you could see the hand marks in the way it was made, which is what I was trying to get really out of it. And I like that idea that obviously everything's subjective and people like different things, but I feel very much now I've got sort of two routes to go in, which is either I try and embrace using CNCs to do the more artistic things I want to do, or I go back to using more traditional artistic processes like hand carving and things, and build on the fact that mine are made by hand as a sort of starting point to be different. Because I'm just very worried that I'm going to get back in. I'm trying now to get back into making and not repair and stuff like that. And I want it to to be different, something to be different from all of the things that everyone else is doing. Like you, Mark, you're trying to push it to an extreme in a different way. And I just want to find something that's more unique. And I'm wondering if rejecting technology is the way, but who knows?
Well, I'm like that with AI. I'll be honest with you. Certainly, creative AI. I'm completely rejecting it because I just think it's pointless. You know, and in the same way as Scott has said about, you know, like cutting fret holes and things like that with a machine. Yeah, I can understand that. Use AI to do stuff that's repetitive and humans don't do, but to use it in a creative way. And look, I'm an old man. I'm so marking off, but he just seems to take, apart from anything else, takes the fun out of life. And I take your point, Daniel, and I think, you know, you've only got to go around sort of art exhibitions, especially sort of modern art stuff, and look closely, realize there are all the hand marks there and stuff, and that actually is what really makes the work. And you know, you take electric guitars and you know how people love the sort of relic idea, you know, this idea that it's been worn and the guitar has somehow, I don't know, matured over years. That's really valuable. People value that, and I suspect they probably will in a few years value the fact that something is hand painted and you can see that it is. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're, you know, CNCs in the future will mimic.
Well, the saddest thing about the internet is that although it might not be true within most of our guitar building community, people value their opinions much more than anyone else's. So that if you do have that opinion that the hand relict or actual relic guitars are good, then someone's going to tell you you're wrong, and they're not going to listen to any reason to why you might think you're right.
Well, the painting is kind of an interesting abstraction because, so when we build a guitar, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a whole lot of things. With painting, it's a hell of a lot more simplistic. But so looking at something complicated like that, and you know, for whatever reason, she decides she doesn't want, you know, mass printing, but this was done by hand. I'm looking at it thinking, you know, from a practical perspective, what's the use in that when you can, you know, mass produce, unless you get enjoyment out of doing that by hand, or it teaches you some good skill that will be used for, you know, somewhere down the line and other things.
Yeah. I like that practical thinking. So it's about the skill. I think for her, maybe it was trying to say that, look, I can put it in a gallery because I can say it's made by an artist, but actually, could you just put one that's made down the road in a factory on the wall?
That reminds me of like Andy Warhol and his like factory. Like, was she around the same time as him? So like she was probably rebelling against that because Andy Warhol didn't do a single thing. Like, yeah, a team of people doing it, but yet it's still art. Wow, and yet we love it. Yeah.
So ironically, she had a team of people painting for her.
Right.
So, you know, she just had human CNCs.
There you go.
Add in, you take that simple problem and add in all the complexity of building a guitar, and then you know, you can compound that by, you know, one of the biggest influences most of us had is Ben, who, you know, really talks about his planes and all of that, and a lot of people seem to have taken that kind of, you know, everybody's got their planes, and, you know, like Ben, and a lot of that thing, you know, people really take pride in, but the end user is not going to know or care that, you know, you had awesome planing skills, you know.
Not unless the end user is you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I would say that I've only got 2 real planes because the more planes you've got, the more sharpening you've got to do. Yeah. So I don't really see the point of having more tools than you need, but there you go.
Some people buying a bespoke instrument where they know the wood has been chosen and hand cut by someone is what they're after. And so that's important for them.
Yeah. I mean, it is lovely to watch. I mean, I don't know. Daisy Tempest is one of the people I watch, is watching that, and Gabrielle Retty as well. I mean, it's just marvelous to watch them when they're doing the works on the, and especially Gabrielle when she does all those inlays with the wood, the marquetry stuff. It's wonderful to watch, isn't it? And the final effect. But of course, I mean, Mr. Scott there is a big influence to me because I've just copied him on the latest guitar, and the idea of matching the two woods together with the wave. Yes, truly inspired piece of work, that.
I don't know where I picked up the idea from somewhere and just I really wanted to find a way that you could precisely do it, and it's difficult.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, the way you did it was fantastic. I mean, and you got absolutely spot on. I mean, mine is not quite the same as that. I tend to use the sander to do the final bit rather than the router, because I'm not that good on the router. But
that's a great example of one of the situations where you really can't trust human ability. This you have to find. Well, you don't have to find, but I really wanted to find a mechanical way that would do this precisely, so that these two pieces just really genuinely fit perfectly. And the best I could come up with was router, but and that's another thing. I mean, something like that with CNC, it would have been no problem, just boom.
Yeah.
And there are lots of situations where if I had the ability to join two crazy shapes together more precisely and more intricately, like CNC could do, I can picture a lot of crazy things that I could do with that.
On a bit of a tangent, because there was a discussion earlier in the chat. Obviously, using CNC and routing and sanding is quite dusty. Someone was talking, or Raphael was asking about dust extraction and what we use. I think I remember Scott saying you don't really use any.
I don't have any. I wish I did, but.
And
no.
with the
shop, that's.
Yeah. I've got my air cleaner on the wall, which is a bit of a pain if you're shooting video because you can hear the thing. So I don't tend to use it too much. I've got a sort of a shop vac thing, a couple of shop vacs that I use. I do try and extract the dust. I'm a bit sort of conscious of all of that, especially some of the olive. I mean, I came out in a complete rash doing some olive sanding a while back, so I'm a bit wary of it. But yeah, I do try and extract as much as I can. On the CNC, Mark, presumably you've got quite hefty dust extraction, have you?
I wouldn't call it hefty. It's like I tried not to spend any money on it, so it's basically just a shop vac running through like a cyclone. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Yeah. So it's a bucket system, and then a tube that runs across and then connects to the actual near the router, and that takes care of the fine particles. Yeah. Right? Because what a CNC does is it makes chips. And that's how you know you're doing things right, when you see a good chip, right? And that's what you'd have. So the chips are heavy, and I think like 80% of them don't get sucked up. They just fall. But what I'm really concerned about is like the fine dust, the fine particles. And that's all taken care of. And I also have an air filtration system too, big heavy thing, really loud. I turn that on sometimes. And that takes care of everything. Anything else that makes dust, I have a bench outside behind the shop. So okay. I'll do like really dirty things out there because I don't want that in my shop.
Yeah, it's hard here to do anything outside because it rains most of the time. But I've also got like one of those shop dust collectors. So it's like a metal bin with a lid in. But I've just bought built a cyclone thing to go next to it, so it goes through two bins, because the filter in it does tend to clog up. And I actually noticed this week how much dust there is in my workshop around some of the tools, because it's just not extracting as well. So I haven't been building guitars, but I'm building an office in the garden for my wife, so cutting lots of pine, and just dust is everywhere. But I watched, I think I mentioned this before, a video by a DIY guy at Watch, a woodworking guy, sorry, called Stumpy Knobs. And he had a video in which he showed that using dust extraction on his hand sander, his palm sander, made it much more efficient. So since then, I've been trying to make sure I really am using it all the time.
Yeah, it sucks it right out. Yeah, and the cyclone thing. I mean, I've actually got wooden cyclone. Again, one of those things where I thought, oh, I need a cyclone, I'll make one. So it's not absolutely round. It's sort of like a, I don't know, hexagon or something like that. But it does take out all the big chips because they clog up the thing. Yeah. And then the rest of the fine stuff is the fine stuff you've got to worry about. That's the stuff that does all the nasty stuff to your lungs. So, you know, you
not to spare anyone, but Nick from Petrek Guitars was on here a few weeks ago, and he was talking about he knows of a number of luthiers. I don't know what a number is, whether it's 2 or 10, who have died recently from lung cancer.
No.
Yeah.
He said it is a side effect that affects. I mean, it may just be coincidence. But
did you guys ever see? Like, it reminds me of a video I saw, an old video of these old luthiers in New York building arch tops in the basements, their basement shops in New York, spraying nitro without a mask.
Oh no!
Just like that. Just like that. Everywhere, just breathing in, day out, day in, day out. Of course, they died. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I saw somebody say about MDF, and again, yeah, you really got to be careful with that stuff. I mean, but yeah.
MDF has the built-in, mechanism of smelling like absolute garbage, so you want to cover up.
Yeah.
I didn't used to worry about it so much in the very beginning, but more increasingly, I'm worried about that, especially when I take the angle grinder and literally vaporize 1/4 inches of material that just sprayed around the room. But in those situations, I'm just wearing a mask, and like I said, I've got a door open at both ends of the shop, and I do worry about it because the stuff you really need to worry about, you can't really see so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's true. The problem with all of these things is, like, if you're trying to do a video, it's, and you've got a mask on, well, you can't talk. I mean, you could do a commentary, but I really don't get on very well trying to do commentaries over the video. I prefer just to shoot it and do it as I'm going, So it's a question of, I don't know, half an hour with it all on, turn it off for 5 minutes, do the shot, put it all on again.
Yeah, noise is always a problem for me. My audio was trash, and I just use the camera audio, and yeah. The conditioner outside, the fan that's blowing on me, and buffeting the camera, all that stuff. Battle.
No, it's when there's a tractor goes by on the lane by us. That's the.
Well, for me, it's the neighbor people doing the yard, and they'll run the weed eater for an hour, and it's, oh my God, this is Sunday. It's the only day I really get to wear it. Can you shut up? Yeah. So
one of the things for me is actually the video making. I mean, do you guys enjoy that aspect of it with the YouTube?
Rarely.
Yeah. Is it? I mean, I've got to the point now, if I go into the shop and I haven't got the camera there, I feel like I'm missing a mate, if you know what I mean. It's
well, my shop is at my mother's, so I got to head off that direction. And there've been a number of times I'm like halfway there, and I'm like, I forgot my camera, and I just got to turn around. I can't move on and do the next steps if I don't get this on camera. So yeah,
it's strange, isn't it? Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure about you, Mark, but the thing I particularly like, which I think you probably do from watching your videos, is the editing element of it all. I think for a while anyway, I was subscribed to and watched more video editing videos than guitar building.
Yeah, editing's fine. It's a way to kind of reshape the story, right? If you didn't have one, like a lot of times we run and gun shoot, right? We just shoot, get some content. And sometimes I just don't know where it's going. But then in the editing stage, you can kind of go, oh, okay, this makes sense. And this goes here. And then you can kind of like weave the narrative if you need to in the editing phase.
Yeah.
But I'm just being smarter these days and just shooting less. That way there's less editing to do. So I don't ramble and I don't like shoot lengthy shots. I used to just put the camera on the CNC and just go, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't do that anymore. Like there's no need. There's just like get the 3 seconds and then get the next 5 seconds and then get the next 10 seconds, whatever. Yeah.
I think for me, doing the video is as much fun as making the actual guitar itself. And you're trying to create sort of a narrative as it goes. I tend to edit as I shoot these days, like you say, and try and sort of vary the camera angles. You're trying to give the impression that there's more cameras in there than there actually are. There's only one. But I mean, the trouble with that is, of course, it does delay the build of the guitar, because you know, you get, as you say, a 10-second shot or something, and then you've got to move the camera around to do the next bit, and you might just be sawing a piece of wood off, you know. But it's all part of the fun, I think.
Yeah.
When it comes to CNC, there's got to be a formula. Like last GGBO, there was somebody they were like live streaming like 4.5 hours of the CNC just going in real time, and it was horrific. And I was like, who's going to watch this? But you also don't want to miss out on it too, because with the right angle, the right amount of time, you know, the right place where you're actually watching some stuff, it's almost an ASMR type of thing. And it really is enjoyable to watch, but it's just got to be done right.
Yeah, I get it.
Like you're talking about these days, when it comes to like cutting frets or sanding a radius or something like that, that takes, you know, an hour or something. You know, we'll film like 2 or 3 of these frets getting cut. You know, if there is something to say during that, you know, but don't record all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
I
agree.
feel like you should have your stock video of cutting a fret that appears in every film every time you make it.
I've thought about that, you know, putting out a build series that is just chunks of, you know, doing this little job on totally different guitars. If anybody notices that, you know, 10 seconds ago that fretboard was maple and, you know, now it's walnut or something.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
No, I know. I mean, I did sort of a beginner's guide to fretting my way of putting the frets in, and I thought, I'm going to do this, and that's it. Then I should just say, in the future, yeah, well, I'm going to fret this guitar, but I'm going to do it that way. Links up there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think about the fact that when doing these things, this build is so much of the process is exactly like the last one, and I feel goofy even recording it. You know. Okay, well, I mean, you've seen this before, but here we go. You know, literally take multiple builds and smash them all together and make it look like a build.
Do you find when you're filming it, or because you're filming it, it forces you to slow down a bit, and therefore you're thinking a bit more about what you're doing than if you were just plowing through it?
Personally, it's the other way round. Personally, the other way. I quite often feel like I've rushed it because I'm filming it, because I'm conscious I don't want to be keeping. I mean, it's a stupid thing in my mind that I don't want to be leaving people on the same thing too long. No, I sometimes, I make so many mistakes. Let's be honest, you know that. You know, these Dave moments where I've sliced the neck the wrong direction or something like that. It's probably because I've been concentrating more on the camera than I have on the work that I've been doing.
I really couldn't say. It's been so long since I worked without a camera that I don't even know.
So yesterday I did do a little bit of work in my workshop, just fixing something, and I filmed it, and I realised it definitely took me much longer to do because I was filming it, and I need to do some things where I'm not filming, like build a couple of guitars without filming, just so I can get things happening again.
Yeah.
I think that has led me to be more simplistic with filming, because I got to film this, but I don't want to, take a whole lot of time dealing with it. Which it's probably some laziness that if I would, eliminate the laziness part of it, my content would be better.
No, I enjoy your videos, Scott, because you're sort of you're working through the process as you're going. You're explaining what you're thinking about and how you're going to do it. So I think it's really useful.
That's most of the what's the word? So many people have said what they do like about my junk is that stream of consciousness and seeing what's going on in my mind when I'm going through this. And I think it's great people like that. It's just how my brain works.
I think you probably. I think if I didn't have a camera there, I'd still be talking to myself. So
yeah, probably so. At least internally.
I definitely talk to myself. I find it odd if people don't talk. If you're alone in a room and you're not talking to yourself,
yeah,
I'd say there's something wrong with you.
You can have a sensible conversation.
Well, I just had a talk with another developer about, and I didn't know there was a name for it, but apparently there's a Wikipedia page for rubber ducky debugging.
Right.
Now, I've known for a long time, like, I've got a great boss. She has no idea what the hell I do. But when I have a problem, I'll go just try to explain it to her. And, her eyes glaze over and she just knows to nod and smile. And once in a while go, oh, and it's just a soundboard. I lay out the whole thing, and actually put enough thought into it to put it into words. And then I can usually immediately see possible solutions and the next steps to go work on. So rubber ducky debugging, apparently some guy who published something talking about this, he talked to a rubber ducky. Something about putting the thoughts together enough to actually put it into language and explain the problem usually helps you see some possible solutions, or it's kind of like to teach something, you really have to understand it, and so a lot of teachers wind up learning a lot by teaching. So I think there really is some value in verbalizing what the thought process is to help you piece things together and be a little more coherent in your thoughts. I think it forces you to put them together in a little better.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
I just had to look at my YouTube channel, and my first video was 10 years ago in December of guitar related stuff.
Wow.
But then it was, apart from the first one, which was an interview with a guitarist about a certain pedal and how he used that pedal, then everything after that for 2 years was just videos of my guitars, sort of demos of things I'd made to help me sell them. And then I made 8 years ago my first video, which was a how-to, and then I did make another how-to for 2 years, but then that's become how I do everything now. So I was saying to Dave off camera, and I know I mentioned last week, I'm going to start up a new YouTube channel which is all just videos of my guitars to help me sell them. And I definitely used to sell more guitars when I had more promotion of them. So I have to remember to do that.
Yeah.
It's funny looking back.
Yeah. I mean, Mark, you've probably got more subscribers than I think any of us here. How long have you been doing videos?
I guess there was that first Great Guitar Build Off where we were just kind of building along. I think that was the first time I decided to capture what I was doing, because I thought, I don't see this anywhere else. No one else is building on a CNC. And I did my first video that way and just kind of, went from there. So 3-4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Gosh, I mean, that's really good. What you've got there. Excellent. Yeah. It's always strange, isn't it? With regard people who are watching your videos, it's the every so often you'll get a video that quite a few people have watched, and then it sort of dies off. and I can't see any sort of logic behind that. I mean, I keep getting these CEO people contact me saying, "Oh, your tags are all wrong. You should, let me help you that." And I say, "Well, no, I'm really not interested, to be perfectly honest with you." But it is quite the novelty, I think. And then quite often I'll think, okay, what can I do with this title of this next video or the thumbnail or something, and just to see whether that actually has an impact on the number of views or not. I don't know if you have experience of that.
Same here. Yeah, like I'll change the thumbnail 100%. Like if it's not doing well, and that alone sometimes drives traffic, the thumbnail. And the title tags I don't think are heavily weighted, so I don't do hashtags, but the title is eye-catching and the thumbnail, those are super important. And then the first like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
The first 10 seconds have to be like, got you. The hook in the cheek, right? Because if it's just something kind of, I used to do like these artsy kind of things, intros. I don't do that anymore. You got to like hook them in the cheek, first 10 seconds. And then it's okay if it kind of trails off because you got at least that hit. But yeah, I'll change the thumbnail. I'll change the title. I have no problem with that. In the end, I do want my channel kind of like board to look a certain way. So I do want to have it, I want to curate it in a certain way. So I want them to have a certain look, colorful palettes, bold text. So I try to kind of stick with that. But yeah, I don't do anything terribly different. Just those three things.
I just went back in December over a lot of my old videos and changed the thumbnails. Yeah. So there's more of a connection to what I want it to be like. But YouTube are about to introduce a new system where you can upload multiple thumbnails and it works out which is the best performing one for you.
All right.
It's way forward, but then that's more thumbnails to make.
Yeah.
I wondered if I was making a mistake by the fact that most of mine are driven by what seems to work for me and watching other people's stuff. So, when I build series, I use a naming convention so it's easy to tell this is number 4 in the series, and a thumbnail that identifies it in that series so they all look alike. And that could very often really, really hurt me, and I don't really know. But I've thought about, your next video where you're just putting frets in, calling it, all nude celebrities, and, much better that does,
Yeah, on that note, Scott, like, I've done a series before, and I won't do numbers, but I'll put something that stands out. Like, for example, the title will be No Truss Rod, right? And now it's a part of a series, but it almost looks like a standalone video, right? But it's definitely part of the series. And so, like, you kind of focus on that one thing, No Truss Rod, and that kind of, like, grabs their attention.
Yeah. And then you get into the video and then you find out at the end that, I'm waiting on the truss rod. It's still not here. so many people, like Russell Brand, for example, all of his titles are absolute 1000% clickbait.
Clickbait, for sure.
But it works.
Sadly, it does. But then.
See, I've bemoaned the fact that, people, all these reaction channels pop up and all they do is, watch somebody else's content and there's not even really that much of a reaction to it. All right, see you next time. And they've got millions of subscribers. But when they can put Bill Burr in their title or, Metallica or something like that people are actually searching for, they get loads of hits. So even though, their content is trash and it's not really content, they get tons of views. I don't know how to translate that into guitar stuff, but
there's a whole wealth of people making YouTube videos on how to make YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I found a couple that I find just really interesting to watch when they talk about the sort of analytics and how it works, and not necessarily to apply to me. I just find their experience really interesting. It's a whole other thing to think about if you want to really get into it.
I think you can. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, but I think my approach to this is that it's the sort of videos. I'm not trying to pick out any one particular thing. I'm just trying to give people a weekly sort of almost a chat show type thing. You know, we're building guitars. I'm going to natter to you for about half an hour or so, talk about it. I don't know. It feels good to do that when I'm making the guitars, and you know, I love the comments. I mean, getting the comments from people is probably the biggest thing about doing these videos. And you know, I get amazing suggestions and tips that you think mistakes I've made. Say, Dave, did you know you've got the volute in the wrong place? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I realise that now, but that is that makes the whole lot worthwhile. You know, so if you only got a few views, but you've had quite a few comments, then that is absolutely brilliant. Of course, the Great Guitar Build Off, that was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? Because our videos, I think I got 7,000 views on one of them. That's unheard of for me. But you know, that whole sort of publicity around that really brought people in, didn't it? To see the videos. Yeah. But,
speaking of which, I put a link to your YouTube channel, Dave, in the description, and there'll be links to us there as well to follow our channels. Dave, early on in the chat, someone put in the comments they love your guitar rack at the back. So I think we can't finish without asking. Actually, you've got quite a lot of guitars. So obviously, you have experience of playing, because I know from your YouTube channel you have music on it as well, and you talk about being an author. What are the guitars behind you? Are they ones that you've built? Are they ones?
Most of them are the ones I've built. Yeah, I've got a black PRS SE on the end there, which is one that Carolyn bought me for I think my 50th, something like that. I've got a red Strat next to that, which I bought off eBay, and that had got a twisted neck, which I had a lot of fun with. It was a question of I thought, how do you deal with a neck that's twisted? So I looked on online there, and somebody said, well, you need to heat it all up. So I had irons on it, trying to bend it round. In the end, I just stripped all the frets off and just planed it back down again. But all the problem was the nut. The nut was too high, and they tried to sort the problem out by over tightening the truss rod. They completely screwed the whole lot up. But it's a fantastic guitar now, and it's just, you know, one of those things. But the rest of the guitars up there, they're all ones that I've built, you know. So, you know, that's my collection of guitars. But
clearly, do you play them a lot then?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I play. I get together with some friends, and I play bass mainly for them. But I record all the music that I have on the channel. Is all stuff that I do myself. I use Cubase on the computer here. I mean, I've loved creating music right from you know, school days when it was 2 cassettes you used to bounce between, you know. But I mean, I still pinch myself now that, you know, I've got a studio here with Cubase multi-track system and all that sort of stuff, and it's absolutely fantastic, you know. And you can do it on the iPad as well. I did a songwriting workshop for some young students the other week, and took the iPad with me with Cubases on, and had a guitar and keyboard with it. And, you know, you've got a mobile recording studio. It's absolutely fantastic and really quite straightforward to use, you know. So, yeah, it's what makes me tick. It's what wastes most of my day. Yeah.
Well, thanks for wasting part of your day with us, Dave.
No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for inviting me on. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, as I say with everyone, hopefully we'll have you back sometime soon. Well, we've got a few people lined up though. So next week I mentioned we've got Dan, who is the CNC builder, a hybrid builder, and then he's just appeared in the chat. The week after that, Ty from Shop the Fox is coming on, because he has a friend called Arran Lucas, who is interested in particular woods. I think he builds acoustic guitars, if I'm right, but he has a company that's trying to develop or promote something called dark forest cypress as a new tone wood.
Oh, right, okay.
Ty was saying they've been having great conversations about wood, so he'll be
excellent. I do like the work that Ty does. It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, and again, very innovative, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a number of awesome characters that popped up.
Absolutely. So, and then Scott and Mark and myself will be here for those ones. Haven't got someone lined up after that yet. We'll see.
Okay. I shall be watching you guys. See if I can pick up some tips. Make guitars properly, perhaps.
Well, I think I don't know what the slogan should be, but it'd be something like "Don't make guitars properly." You know, innovate, make it in your own way, different ways.
Absolutely.
Do it the Dave way, doing Dave things. Show off your shirt.
Just don't. Yeah. Oh, this is great friends. They bought this. We saw them at the weekend, and they said, "Well, we're going to look for another one for you."
I think you undersell yourself. You've done some pretty interesting things. I don't know that I would undersell your accomplishments.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. Absolutely. You've got a lot of fans in the community, for sure.
Excellent. Oh, I like that. First rule, forget the rules. Yeah.
Well, I'll say thanks to everyone again there, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Are you looking for an excuse to build a guitar? Or do you just want to be part of the community and see other people's builds? Why not take part in Jörg's Cup? It's a community build-along where anyone can take part by simply sharing your builds either as photos or videos on social media and using the hashtag Jörg's Cup. You can engage in conversations in the comments section and get feedback from others. The build-along is named after Jürgen Zoller of Zoller Guitars, a valued member of the Guitar Builders Collective who regularly commented on other people's builds, giving them encouragement and ideas. The whole point of this build-along is to grow the community, to make online friends, to share ideas and inspire others. This year's competition ends on the 23rd of April, and if you're stuck for inspiration, this year we have an optional theme, use what you've got. You can find out more via the Guitar Builders Collective forum, the Instagram page,